Can anybody tell me what is the question? Did we write this part here, Hansa? Did we complete the did we complete this vendor of sweets? I have sent you the recording. Okay, right. Did we discuss the second question? Did we discuss about the second question? To the Nile by John Keats. Did we discuss about that? Sorry. Right. Okay. So I think we have to start from here then. Right. So let's go to the question. I don't know whether others can hear me well. Pasandul, can you hear me, Puta? Namit Ranavir, can you hear me? Am I audible to you? Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Right. So we can start with this one. While the explanation is going on, you guys can write down whatever the ideas that I'm going to explain. So this is actually from 2021 paper. Today we are going to discuss about the poetry part. And I think you guys have completed this poem. In my class, I discussed this poem with grade 11 students. This poem is actually comes under the category of sonnets. And this is actually written by John Keats. And it explains about the beauty of the river Nile. And the beauty is actually explained in two different perspectives, right? So when you refer to a sonnet, when we refer to John Keats, basically, John Keats lived very short period of time as a poet. So most of the work done by him actually acclaimed a lot of success. And he is known to be one of the most famous writers when it comes to English literature, even though he has lived very short period of time. So, however, when we discuss about the poem To the Nile by John Keats, this poem can be taken as a masterpiece because this poem is actually written according to the format of sonnets. Now, sonnets are known as 14-line poems. Basically, there are two types of sonnets in literature. We divide them according to the people who actually introduced the genre. Basically, these poems, these writings are actually introduced by William Shakespeare. That poems are known as Petrarchian sonnets, right? Shakespearean sonnets, I'm sorry. And what do you call another category is Petrarchian sonnets. Actually, Francisco Petrarch is the one who introduced the poetic category. So it is known as Petrarchian poem. So this basic idea you have to remember. What is a sonnet? Basically, in a sonnet, we have 14 lines. Sonnets can be divided into two parts, Petrarchian sonnets and Shakespearean sonnets. Both in Petrarchian and Shakespearean sonnets, we have 14 lines, right? Both sonnets, they have 14 lines. The only difference is that when it comes to the rhyming scheme, if you take Petrarchian sonnets, the rhyming scheme is ABBA, ABBA, CD, 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 right? So this can be taken as the Petrarchian sonnet, as you can see on the screen. I have explained that ABBA, ABBA, CD, CD, CD. So the first 8 lines can be identified as ABBA, ABBA rhyming scheme, and the next 6 lines are known as CD, CD, CD. So the number of lines are very common, right? Very common to both. Number of lines are very common. But if you take Shakespearean sonnets, basically they have a different rhyme scheme. Yeah, they have A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. Yeah, finally you have rhyming couplets in the last 2 lines. So here what we can understand is that we have a different rhyming scheme when it comes to both categories. So that is the basic difference when it comes to Petrarchian sonnets and Shakespearean sonnets. But both have 14 lines. If it is a sonnet, definitely make sure to remember we have 14 lines. Now, these things you have to remember. These are the basic things I am going to explain you when you are going to write answers, especially when it comes to the poems like this, because certain poems are belong to certain poetic genres, or else we call categories, right? Some of them are elegies, some of them are sonnets, some of them belong to the category of odes. Likewise, so before going to the answer the question, if it is poetry, you should know that what is the category, whether it is a free verse, whether it is a sonnet, whether it is an ode. Likewise, you have to have a considerable understanding before writing the answers. What type of poem is this? That understanding is something very much important, that you have to make sure that before going to write answers, you have to keep that in your mind. That is what I am going to explain here, right? So I have explained that part, even rhyming schemes. You guys can see the screen. While my explanation is going on, you guys can write down. I won't give extra time period to write down, so make sure to write down the answers. In the Italian or the Petrarchy sonnet, there is usually a Volta line. Now, this is something very important. If you take the 14 lines, when you come to the line number 9 can be taken as the Volta line. What do you mean by Volta line? From line number 9, the whole idea of the poem will be changed. So that line is known as Volta line. Now, when you read the poem very carefully, you can identify. If you refer to this poem, if you read the poem very carefully, the first part of the poem is actually discussing about the mysterious mythical elements related to the Nile River with the historical background. If you take the sestate part of the poem, right, the last 6 lines, you can understand where the poet discusses about the reality of the Nile River, where all the rivers are very same. Even though the Nile River is known as the longest river in the world, Nile River is also a very usual normal river. That is the idea. So the shifting actually occurs in line number 9. That line is known as the Volta line. Make sure to remember. So the shifting will occur in line number 9, right? So in line number 9, the audience will identify that, okay, the poet is having a shift there. Now he is not going to explain about the mythical and mystical features related to the Nile River. From here onwards, the poem will be different, right? So you have to remember that. So that difference is actually occurring in line number 9. That line is known as the Volta line. So these facts are very much important. I don't know. I have actually taught them to my students. Others, please make sure to go through these things, because according to my personal opinion, I personally believe that you have to know about these things if you are doing literature as a subject for O levels. So as I have given here, there is usually a volta or turn of the line of thought from the octave to the sestate. In this sonnet also, line number 9 marks change of thought. What is the change of thought? From line number 1 to line number 8, the poet discusses about the mythical, mystical, and historical background related to the Nile River. Nile River is taken as a sacred river. Nile River is taken as a special river with some special features, right? A lot of historical, mythical, mystical things are actually bound by Nile River, right? Those are the things actually discussed by the poet when it comes to the first 8 lines. But after the first 8 lines, the next 6 lines, where the poet discusses about the reality of Nile River, where he can understand that all these mythical, mystical creatures are ideas are actually made by people themselves. But when you refer to river Nile as a river, there is no much difference between other rivers. Whatever the characteristics, whatever the features that we can find in a normal natural river, same thing can be found in what you call river Nile as well. Try to understand that phenomenon. This is the basic idea given by the poet, right? The basic idea is given by the poet. So this is what you have to remember. From where the line of thought is changing, this is what you have to understand. The line is actually changing from that part. That is something very important, right? I hope you can understand that. In this sonnet also, line number 9 marks a change of thought. The poet seems to have awakened from his reverie of daydreaming of the charms of the Nile and begins to reflect on the natural beauty of the Nile River. Now, that is something important, right? So the natural beauty of the Nile River is actually explained from after line number 9, where he pays much attention towards the practical elements of the river Nile. One should also understand the historical and geographical importance of river Nile to understand this beautiful sonnet. That is something very much important. In the novel or in the short story, in the poem also, we are going to discuss about that historical importance as well. The poem will appeal to readers. Now, don't forget the question. We are discussing a last year O-level paper. The question is about highlighting how it appears to the reader's emotions. That is the question. So in paper classes, I always advise my students, when you are about to write an answer, when it comes to literature, always read the question several times and try to understand what is the most important phrase or clause that you have to pay your attention in order to write your answers. Directly don't go to write your answers, because that will be a huge disadvantage for you. So please make sure to understand that when you read the question several times, you will understand your entire answer must be constructed according to that methodology. Right? Entire answer must be constructed according to that methodology, where if you read the question, you can find out what is the most important clause or phrase. Now here, highlighting how it appears to the reader's emotions. That is the question is all about. Highlighting how it appears to the reader's emotions. Now we have to show how the poet has referred to this poem how he tries to write the poem in a manner that it appears to the reader's emotions. So first and foremost, we have to understand how it appears to our emotions. What kind of emotions are what do you call appealed by referring to this poem, right? That is the major thing that you have to pay your attention. I hope you guys can understand. Now there are different types of emotions. We will try to understand them one by one, right? The poem will appeal to the reader's emotions in several perspectives. Now this is something very important, right? So now I am writing according to the question. Always make sure to remember, use some part from the question when you are writing the explanation, because then the person who is marking the paper is always under the awareness that, okay, this particular student is writing according to the question, because you have taken some part from the question itself. So when he is marking the paper, he is under the impression that, okay, this word is very much familiar to me because the student is writing according to the question, right? According to the question that they have asked, right? So that is a very good point, a very good technique that you can follow. So here, the most important word, as I told you, highlighting how it appears to the reader's emotions. So most important word is reader's emotions. So whenever we are writing a paragraph about the explanation, after writing our quotations, always make sure to highlight the word reader's emotions. That is the word you should highlight. Reader's emotions, right? Very important. The beauty, nature, and the historical heritage related to the Nile River is appeared in the poem. As I have told you in the octave part, the beauty, nature, and the historical heritage related to the river Nile is appeared in the poem. The beauty of the nature will be appealing to the emotions of the reader. Exactly, yes. When we read the first part of the poem, the natural beauty of the river and the mythical, mystical features of the river will definitely appeal our emotions. There is no doubt about that. We will try to understand the river Nile in a different perspective. We will understand that Nile River is special, not like the other rivers. It is not like Mahavali River. It is not like Kalani River, right? It is not like other rivers that we have seen in the country. Nile River is known as the longest river. And apart from that, according to the poet, he has given so many important historical value to the poem by referring to a lot of metaphors. So when we read those metaphors, we will realize that, okay, even though we try to understand that Nile River is just a normal river, people who lived in that time period, they did not think that Nile River is just a mere normal river. They try to understand that in a different perspective. They understood that, okay, Nile River is special. Why Nile River is special? Sometimes the Nile River has helped them in order to bring up their cultivation, in order to build up their civilization, right? Sometimes there are certain mythical ideas related to the Nile River, and what do you call different types of crocodiles are still living inside the Nile River, and people are under the notion that crocodile is some kind of a sacred animal. So crocodile is living in a sacred place. So we should not disturb them and we should not harm them. So likewise, there are a lot of historical, mythical ideas around Nile River. So when we read the poem, it appeals to us, right? So we will understand that Nile River is not a normal river, right? We have seen number of rivers in our lifetime, but Nile River is something special. That is what you can understand. So up to that point, if you have any questions, you can ask. I explained you about the genre of the poem, why it becomes a sonnet, what kind of sonnets are there, how many lines are there in a sonnet, who wrote these sonnets, what are the two parts of the sonnets, octave and the sestave. Octave means 8 lines, sestave means 6 lines. I discussed about the Volta line, and here in this poem we can clearly understand in the octave part the mythical, mystical features of the Nile River is being discussed. On the other hand, we can see that the sestate part, where the original or else the practical elements of the Nile River is discussed. So we are going to discuss how it appeals to our emotions in several perspectives, not only for one emotion, but also for different types of emotions. Up to now, if you have any questions, you can ask. Shall we move on? If you have any questions, please ask, right? Bizara, Namit, Oshita, Shuada, Tushan, Yehansa, Namit Ranavira, please ask. Vasandul, if you have any questions, please ask. This is the introduction that I have given to introductory paragraph, the basic introduction, right? Please ask if you have any questions. If you have finished, we can move on to the next slide. It seems that you don't have any questions. Shall we move on? If you have any questions, you can ask. What about Ishan? Ishan Pute, can you understand? Namit, can you understand? Please send me a message. Pasandul, this is only the opening part. Huh? This is only the opening part. We call that the background. Right? We have not still answered the question. We only started the background, right? The background part you have to write. This is what we call the introductory paragraph. This is what we call the introductory paragraph, right? So we have to write some kind of introduction when we are going to write an appreciation in literature. Some kind of introductory paragraph should be given. The setting of the poem, about the writer, if it is a short story, what are the characters, right? What is the plot of the story, right? All these things we have to explain. Then only we are moving to the question. So please make sure to understand in your O-level exam also, you have to write this kind of introductory paragraph, and then only you can move on to your question. Try to understand that. So here I have given you some kind of considerable understanding about the poem. Now you know what is a sonnet, what are the different types of sonnets that we have, Petrarchian and Shakespearean sonnets. What are the basic differences that they have? Lines are same, but their rhyming schemes are different, rhyming patterns are different. At the same time, Petrarchian sonnets can be divided into two parts, octave and the sestate. Octave means the first 8 lines and the sestate means the next 6 lines, where the shift will occur in the Volta line. The best example is To the Nile by John Keats, where after the 9th line, what we can realize is that the poet is discussing about the reality of the Nile River rather than mythical, mystical features, or else whatever the features that he can see in other perspective, right? So I hope that you guys have finished. Shall we move on? Right. Okay. Now we will try to understand. Again, I am telling you, please make sure to remember the word reader's emotions, right? Reader's emotions. So don't forget that word, right? When you are writing the answer, if you forget that word, then there is a problem, right? Don't do that. Do like that, because sometimes most of the students, they write the entire poem and they write all the things that they know about the particular poem, right? That is remarkably good, but the problem is they don't get marks. The reason is that their answer is not targeted around the question. Literature appreciation is not something that you are going to write. I know about the poem, I have heard about the poem, so I can write everything. No, that is not going to happen, right? You have to target, right? There are a lot of things. There can be a lot of themes. If you take R.K. Narayan's Vendor of Sweets, there are a number of themes, but when we are writing an answer, we are only targeting for a very limited area. That limited area you have to select. That is kind of a talent that you have to possess. You are the one who is going to select that what is that limited frame that I am going to write, because this is not the only question that you are going to write. As I have told you, within 25 to 30 minutes, you have to complete 2.5 pages with 4 quotations, and you have to shift to the other question as well, right? So it is not something that you are going to write what you call 1.5 hours, right? You cannot write one question 1.5 hours. You have to shift, whether you like it or not. Whether you like it or not, you have to shift to the other question, right? Otherwise, you will run out of time. So don't do like that. Make sure to have that limitation. That limitation is inside your mind. You know that, okay, this is the limitation that I have. I'm not going to write more than that, because this is what they have asked. So in this question also, they have asked about the reader's emotions. We are trying to explain the fact that how writer or else the poet has actually constructed this poem, written this poem, where in a manner that it appears to the reader's emotions. Let's try to identify that. On the other hand, Nile River will be taken to evoke the intelligence among the readers to verify the fact that even though it is known to be the longest river in the world, right, the services provided by the river is very same, just like all the other rivers in the world. So as you can understand, so it actually appears to our emotions in 2 perspectives. Number 1, the beauty of the nature will be appealing to our emotions in a much more mythical and mystical manner, right? Our emotions will be evoked mythically and mystical. That part we can understand, right? So our intelligence will not be there, because we are into that mythical and mystical historical environment about the Nile River, the first octave part, right? The 8 lines. And soon after that, we can understand, okay, now the writer is moving to the next part, where on the other hand, Nile River will be taken to evoke the intelligence among the readers, right? So the John Keats is actually appealing to the intelligence, right? Appealing to the intelligence, right? Our emotions will be aroused by referring to the intelligence that we have, where he says, the fact that even though it is known to be the longest river in the world, the service provided by the river is very same, just like all the other rivers in the world. Even though he said that Nile River is special in the octave part, in the sestate part, what we can realize is that he is not going to give any speciality, right? Any, what do you call, extra feature towards Nile River. So this is something very much important. The service provided by the river is very same, just like all the other rivers in the world. Now you can understand that, right? In the last part, in the latter part of the poem, or else we can say the sestate. In the sestate part, the poet says that you are not a special river. Whatever the contributions actually provided by the other rivers, you are also doing the same thing. So according to my opinion, you are not special. But at the very beginning, he said that Nile River is so special. But in the latter part of the poem, he says that, so as readers, we also have to identify that fact. He gives number of examples saying that even though Nile River is the longest river in the world, I am not going to give any specialty to that, because Nile River is doing the same thing just like the other rivers, even though they are much more less larger than the Nile River. Nile River is also doing the same thing, right? We can argue it arouses not only happiness and joy as emotions, but also intelligence as well. Can you see this part? Now here I am using a technique. Please pay your attention, Buddha. Now in the last part, I am again using the word. So we can argue. So I have written something like this. It arouses not only happiness, joy as emotions. Can you remember the word emotions? So each and every place I am trying to use that word because I want to verify the fact that I am writing according to the question. So what are the emotions? Happiness and joy. Happiness and joy will be given in the first part of the poem, right? Mystical and mythical features. And latter part of the poem, or else we call the sestate part, intelligence will be, the poet may be addressing to the intelligence, right? No, don't think like that. Nile River is not special. I was daydreaming, right? It was kind of a dream that I saw, but when you come to the reality, Nile River is not special. That is what he says. So that part actually appeals to our intelligence. So now you can understand how it appeals to our emotions in one perspective, and the latter part, how it appeals to our emotions in another perspective. When we refer to the octave of the sonnet, octave means the first part of the sonnet, the poet has taken his level best to beautify the glory of the Nile River based on its history and nature, right? The poet has taken his level best, right? The poet has taken his level best to beautify the glory of the Nile River based on its history and nature. He has encompassed three metaphors to illustrate the beauty of the nature, beauty of the Nile River. So obviously Nile River belongs to nature. The poet starts the poem by comparing the Nile to a sun, whose father is the Moon Mountain range, which is situated in Africa. Sun is a metaphor, which is a direct comparison to Nile River. So he starts like that. He says that Nile River is not just a river. It is the sun. It is the son of the all Moon Mountain African. That is how he starts. So the poet says that Nile River is not just a mere river. Please try to understand. Nile River can be identified as the sun. So here personification is used as a poetic technique where the poet has given life to non-living things. Giving life to non-living things is known as personification when it comes to literature, right? So personification is given. This inanimate river is given life. The inanimate river is being given life by the poet, right? Something very much important. The poet starts the poem by comparing the river Nile to a sun, right? Direct comparison can be seen, whose father is Moon Mountain range, which is situated in Africa. Sun is a metaphor which is a direct comparison to the river Nile, through which the poet attempts to add an emphasis to its male characteristics. So Nile River is not taken as a woman. But if you refer to Sri Lankan poems, most of the Sri Lankan poems, when they discussed about these rivers and waterfalls, most of them try to give some kind of feminine idea to rivers and waterfalls, right? Rivers and waterfalls, they have attributed some kind of feminine qualities. But in this poem, the situation is totally different, where male characteristics are actually given to the Nile River, where he does not say that Nile River is the daughter. He directly says that Nile River is the son of the All Moon Mountain. At the same time, the attribution of human characteristics can be seen as personification. We have discussed about that. Chief is a tribal leader. Calling the river a chief reminds the reader of the African setting of the poem, and it can be considered as a metaphor as well. In the second part, the poet says that chief of the pyramid and crocodile, right? Chief of the pyramid and crocodile. Now we know that when we discussed about the Egypt, right, the most fascinating thing that we discussed about is these beautiful pyramids. So people believe that in order to construct these pyramids, all the water and all the other distribution, the support for the distribution is actually helped by the Nile River. Through Nile River only, all these stones and other essentials may have brought to the Egypt in order to build these beautiful, mystical and enormous, what do you call, pyramids, right? So in that perspective also, Nile River is so much special. If Nile River was not there at that time period, it will be very much difficult to build these pyramids. Nowadays, we know that what kind of valuability and what kind of cultural value is added to these things. So according to the poet, these things are also done because of the help provided by the Nile River. So as a result of that, in the second line also, Nile River is taken as a chief. In the first line, it is taken as a son. In the second line, it is taken as a chief. So both these personifications are, or both these metaphors are directly comparing Nile River to something else. So you can understand. So we are not dealing with the river. We are not dealing with just mere river, right? We are dealing with something special. That special quality, that special emotion is actually aroused by the poet by using powerful metaphors, right? I hope that you guys can understand. If you have any problems, you can ask. If you have finished, we can move on to the next part, right? Pasandul, can you understand? Namit Ranavira Puta, can you understand the special quality, the speciality given to the Nile River? Yehansa, can you understand? Amaya, if you have any questions, you can ask Puta. If you have any questions, you can ask. Now, still we discussed about the octave part, right? The special qualities of the Nile River. Don't forget that. Now, these special qualities are arousing the mythical, mystical emotions and the beauty of the Nile River, or else, yeah, we can say beauty and the what do you call, the beauty of the environment as well, right? So he is trying to arouse those feelings, right? He is not going to arouse the intelligence in the first part, right? So when we read it very carefully, we can identify, okay, Nile River is taken as something really special. That is why the poet has used different types of metaphors in order to explain that. If you have finished, you can ask. Shall we move on to the next part? Did you finish? Shall we move on? Puta, shall we move on to the next part? What about the other students? Did they write? Disara, did you write, Puta? Pasandul, Tushan, shall we move on? What about the other students? Namit, Puta, shall we move on? Did you write? Right, okay, right. We will move on to the next part. Now we discussed about the metaphors, or else we call that literary techniques used by that particular writer in order to show the special qualities related to the Nile River. From that, by referring to these things, we will get different types of emotions about the Nile River. As the audience, we will feel that Nile River is special, not like the other rivers, right? There is some kind of mystical and mythical features. What do you call, amalgamated with the Nile River. So it is little bit, there is some kind of mystery, right? There are a lot of mystical, mythical stories related to Nile River, right? So we will get that idea. Our intelligence will not be aroused, right? We don't think that, okay, Nile River is just a mere river at the very beginning of the story because of this beautiful usage of diction and the language, right? Okay. Yeah, exactly. Pyramids is a pyramid can be taken as a symbol, Yehansa. The symbol is actually nowadays pyramid is actually taken as one of the 7 wonders in the world. So at that time period, we know that the technology and all the other resources are not that much developed. But having said that, right, they have made that pyramids according to the proper mathematical order without taking any help from anyone. In order to build that, in order to bring all the stones and other goods, they clearly believe that Nile River, they used Nile River as a transportation method, right? As a transportation method using all these boats and ships and stuff, right? So if Nile River was not there, it will be a very difficult task for them to build these beautiful pyramids. So that is what the poet tries to explain here. In order to build that kind of wonder, this wonderful river actually helped, right? I hope that you can understand. Right. So we are moving to the next part. Okay, shall we move on? Right. So then, Yehansa, whatever the question that you asked, the answer is here, right? The Egyptian setting is created through the visual images, pyramid and crocodile. But note that the poet does not talk about the pyramids nor the crocodiles. That is the important thing, Yehansa. Now, even though we said that pyramids and crocodiles can be taken as symbols, the poet is not giving so much valuability and validity towards these things. According to the poet, pyramids and crocodiles are still surviving because of Nile River. That is what we can understand, right? They are still surviving because of Nile River, the support given by the Nile River. That is what we can understand. It is the pyramid and crocodile. The definite article and the capitalization tells the reader that the pyramid and the crocodiles are symbols, as you said, Yehansa. They all collectively appeal to the audience to embrace the emotions. Now you can understand. Again, I am coming to the question. I am not going to write out of my topic, Putha. Can you see here, right? So here I have said that the definite article and the capitalization tells the reader that the pyramid and the crocodiles are symbols. They all collectively appeal to the audience to embrace the emotions. Yes, other emotions, right? This is something very important that you have to understand. Nile River has been introduced to us as a mythical, mystical element of nature. I hope you guys are going to highlight these parts. Pudha, mythical, mystical element of nature, right? So it is something very special, right? It is not just a river, right? It is something really special. Now, if you take Adam's Peak, now for the other people, Adam's Peak will be a place, it is just a mountain. For other people, Adam's Peak is just only a mountain. But for Buddhist and other religions, it is actually a very sacred place. Can you understand? So someone else may say that there is no specialty in that. It is just a mountain. But other people will say that no, right? It is kind of a special place to us. Something like that. I hope you can understand. The Nile River has been introduced to us as mythical and mystical element of nature. River Nile has nourished the dark nations or the Africans since time immemorial, right? Dark nations of the Africans, right? Nile River has provided its water and its support for the African nations for a long period of time. Now, we have to agree with this part, right? Nile River, I think that you may have learned about civilization related to the Nile River, right? When you are going to learn about history, you may have learned about that. So there also we can understand because of the Nile River, certain civilizations actually occurred in those areas. So as a result of that, we can see Nile River is so much special for people because they did their occupations and they took water for their day-to-day activities, right? They survived because of Nile River. We cannot forget that part, Putha, right? They survived because of Nile River, right? Egyptian civilization. Thank you, Putha. Very good, right? So River Nile has nourished the dark nations or the Africans since time of immemorial. The Nile has given life not only to one nation, but to the several countries through which it flows, right? That is why it is known as the longest river in the world, not only for one country, but also almost all the countries that the Nile River is flowing through. The Nile has given not only to one nation, but to the several countries through which it flows. All three metaphors will help us to keep our emotions towards the mythical and historical references related to the river Nile. Can you understand? By referring to these metaphors, what we can realize is that our mystical and mythical emotions will be aroused. Our mythical and mystical emotions will be aroused, right? Now, we also have a lot of stories to tell about Antony and Cleopatra, about Caesar, right? We can tell number of stories related to Nile River, right? Related to the Nile River, if I'm not mistaken, when Cleopatra was the queen of Egypt at that time period. So Caesar is the person who is the conqueror who captured 2/3 of the world at that time period. So Caesar wanted to capture Egypt as well. So at that time period, Cleopatra was the queen. So Cleopatra was really loved and respected by the people who lived in Egypt as a queen. So Cleopatra said that you should not go to, you must not fight with my nation, right? I will marry you, then my nation will be yours, right? I'm going to do that not because I love you, right? Not because I love you. I am doing that act because I don't like to have fight, because my people will die, right? Then she said that, okay, you should not going to fight. You're not going to fight with me, with my soldiers, right? I will definitely marry you, and the entire Egyptian nation will be yours. Then what happened, right? So Antony, right? Mark Antony can be taken as the most powerful, what do you call, soldier, or else the lieutenant that Caesar had. He's a very young and smart and bold guy. So after a certain time period, what happened? Some kind of affair was started actually between Cleopatra and Antony. So William Shakespeare also wrote a very beautiful drama about this, Antony and Cleopatra. So then what happened? Caesar got to know about that, where Cleopatra and Antony is having some kind of an affair. At the end of the day, what happened? Caesar actually ordered to kill Antony, but nobody was able to kill him. He himself, he died himself. He suicided. Cleopatra actually went to the Nile River by using a boat, and she took a snake from the Nile River, and she was given chance to this snake to bite her, very poisonous snake, and she died in that manner. What do you call, when she was rowing on the Nile River. So likewise, there are a lot of beautiful stories about Nile River. This is what I told you about the mythical and mystical features related to the Nile River, right? So these are the things that actually aroused by the writer, right? These are the things actually aroused by the writer. So these are the basic three metaphors that we have: son of the all moon mountain African, chief of the pyramid and crocodile, nurse of the SWAT nation since the world began. So Nile River is taken as a nurse. A nurse is a person who works in hospital treating for patients, right? So the same quality can be seen from the Nile River as well, right? All these African nations are taken as ill people or else patients, right? They are helpless. So the Nile River as a nurse always helped them to stood up from their own feet, right? They did their occupations and they did their almost all their work because of the River Nile, right? So River Nile actually provided them life. So this is what the writer has explained, right? So by referring to all these incidents, all these metaphors, one can realize that it is all about creating some kind of mythical, mystical feature, mythical, mystical emotion in our mind related to the Nile River. So that is how the poet has appealed to our emotions, right? Our mystical emotions, mythical emotions are actually aroused by the poet by referring to these metaphors. I hope you can understand. If you have finished, we can move on to the next part. If you have any problems, you can ask, right? What about Namit? Can you understand? Disari, Pute Teranavada, Ravina, Sohara, or Teranavada Pute, Prasudinonang Ahanda, Mulimma, me Kaviye, me Nile, Nadia Sambanding, Vistarakala Tiana Deval, Sampurnemma, විශ්වාස කළ නොහැකි අභිරහස් සහ සාහිත්‍යයට එහා ගිය අපි කියනවා මේ ඒකට අභිරහස්මය සහ විශ්මයජනක කාරණා පදනම් කරගෙන ලියන නිසා මේක කියවන පුද්ගලයෙකු විදියට මගේ තියෙන මගේ සිතැඟි මගේ තියෙන හැඟීම් ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අවුස්සලා ගන්නේ ඒකට අදාළව තියෙන භයානක ඒ වගේම අභිරහස් ඒ වගේම ඒ නයිල් නදිය සම්බන්ධයෙන් තියෙන ගොඩක් නොකී කතා ගොඩාක් ඇදලා එළියට ගන්නවා. ඒක තමයි අපි කියන්නේ මේ අපේ සිතුවිලි වෙනස් කරන්න යන්නේ එහෙමයි. ඔබට සරලම සිංහලෙන් කිව්වොත් ඒක තමයි තේරුම. ඒකට එයා පාවිච්චි කරනවා ගොඩක් කතා, ගොඩක් මෙටාෆර්ස් පාවිච්චි කරනවා. ඒ වගේ ගොඩක් දේවල් එයා පාවිච්චි කරනවා. කොහොම හරි මේක කියවන කෙනාට එන්නේ ඒ වගේ අදහසක්. ටිකක් නයිල් නදිය එච්චර ලස්සන දෙයක් කියලා පේන්නේ නැහැ. පොඩ්ඩක් භයානක ගොඩාක් හැංගිච්ච කතා තියෙන අභිරහස් ගංගාවක් වගේ තමයි අපිට පේන්නේ. ඒ හැංගීම් තමයි මෙයා උරුප්පල පෙන්නන්නේ. හැබැයි පසු කාලීනව ඒ හැංගීම් පොඩ්ඩක් වෙනස් වෙනවා. අන්න ඒක ගැන තමයි මේ poem එකේ ඔබෙන් අහන්නේ. Right? That is a simple explanation that I can give. Right? If you have finished, please pass me a message. We will move on to the next part. Right. So we will move on. Right. I hope that you guys have finished. Right. So still we are referring to that mythical, mystical qualities. We will move on. Then they will understand how our emotions will be changed. Right. Okay. Right. So we are going to the next part. In the third line is a run-on line, meaning that it links with the fourth line, which is regarded as desert fills our seeing's inward span. Here the poet refers to his imagination, which fills with the desert. Now this word is very much important in the poem. A lot of students, they are asking this word, inward span. What do you mean by inward span? Inward span refers to the imagination, right? It is another word used in literature for imagination, right? Inward span refers to imagination. Remember that word, right? So which fills with the desert. Imagination is sometimes called the third eye. Now basically we all have two eyes, we can see that. But if you can see something in a different angle or a different perspective as an author, as a writer, as a short story writer, as a poet, right? We normally call that they have a third eye. Certain things that we cannot identify, certain things that we cannot see, actually seen by them, actually captured by them when it comes to their work. So this is what we call third eye. They have the third eye. But here the poet calls it seeing inward span. Literally, it means the inner dimension of our vision or imagination, right? So the poet, even John Keats, he has got that imagination, right? Taken together, this line means our imagination is filled with desert while we wonder at the fruitfulness of the river. So when we discuss about the fruitfulness of the river, the service done by the river, the mythical and mystical features refer to the river. At the same time, we can imagine that the background of this place, it is a desert, right? So the Sahara desert can be seen. So it is a desert, right? So at the same time, we discuss about the fruitfulness, we can see that there is some kind of futile, there is some kind of infertility as well related to this place. So the poet tries to explain the fact that because of the Nile River, only that fertility came to the African world. Because of the Nile River, only that fertility came to the African world. Otherwise, the African countries will be what do you call in dark forever. That is why he uses the word dark there, right? So that is the importance, right? Because of the Nile River only they found their civilization, they found their cultivation, they found their profession, right? So a lot of people actually survived because of the Nile River. So the entire infertile place is actually made fertile by the help of Nile River, right? That is what the writer says. Thus fruitfulness and barrenness exist side by side. Fruitfulness and barrenness exist side by side. On one hand, we have the Nile River. On the other hand, we have that Sahara desert, right? So you can see that they are kept together, right? Another wonder of nature. As the audience, it will appeal to our emotions. We will definitely think whether the river Nile is wondrous or fruitful. Now we are in two different extremes, right? We will try to understand that, okay, River Nile is mysterious. River Nile is wonderful. At the same time, is it fruitful? Fruitful refers to, is it useful to the people? Fruitful refers to, is it useful to the people? The poet asks the river whether it is truly fruitful, or is it just enchanting or beguile for the men who worked, won with extreme labor or toil to honor it. So the poet is asking a question. These kind of questions are known as, right, rhetoric questions, right? Rhetoric question is actually asked by the poet towards the Nile River, where he asks that, okay, are you really fruitful? As a river, are you really fruitful? Or these people are actually telling me all these historical, mythical features. Are you really beneficial for these innocent people? Or you just a beguile? Beguile means some kind of a magic, right? Or enchanting, right? These people are actually having that so much of respect towards you under two different reasons. Number one, either you will be really fruitful. Then මේ මිනිස්සු පිස්සුවෙන් වගේ ඔයාව අදහන්නේ මේකට හේතු දෙකක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ. එක්ක ඔයා මේ මිනිස්සුන්ට පුදුම සේවයක් කරලා තියෙනවා. Either you will be a great fruitful river. On the other hand, because of these mystical and mythical features, you must be beguiled or else enchanting. මිනිස්සු බොරුවට බය වෙලා මේ එක එක අභිරහස් කතා අහලා අනම්මනම් දේවල් නිසා මේ ඉතිහාසයත් එක්ක බැඳිච්ච කතා නිසා ඔයාට පොඩි ගරු කිරීමක් තියෙනවා. ඔයාට බයයි. මිනිස්සු නයිල් ගඟට බයයි. එහෙම තියෙනවනේ. දැන් අපි ඉන්දියාව ගත්තොත් එහෙම අපි දානවා ගංගානම් ගඟට පොඩ්ඩක් බයයි මිනිස්සුනේ. Right? Because ඒගොල්ලෝ විශ්වාස කරනවා, they believe that the river Ganges can wash away your sins. පව් හොදාලා අරින්න පුළුවන් කියලා හිතනවනේ. එක එක ගංගා වලට බලයක් දීලා තියෙනවා. Now when we take Kalani River, when you take all the other rivers in Sri Lanka, Kalani River has got some kind of sacredness. පොඩි පූජනීයත්වයක් තියෙනවානේ කැලණි ගඟට. දැන් අනිත් ගඟවල එච්චර වැදගත් නැහැ. කැලණි ගඟට තියෙනවා පොඩි පූජනීය භාවයක්. කැලණියේ පන්සල තියෙනවා. කැලණියට බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ වැඩලා තියෙනවා. අන්න ඒ වගේ මිනිස්සුන්ගේ තියෙනවා පොඩි එකක් නේ. මේ ස්වභාව සෞන්දර්යයට පොඩි එකක් තියෙනවා. එතකොට එයා කල්පනා කරනවා, the poet is asking the question, where ඇත්තටම are you really fruitful or else dost thou beguile? Are you beguile? Beguile means, are you like kind of an enchanting thing, right? People used to believe, right? So whether it is truly fruitful or is it just enchanting for the men who work really hard. Won means work, extreme labor. Toil means extreme labor to honor it. I don't know why people are paying a lot of respect and honor towards you. As there is no answer, it becomes a rhetoric question asked from the river, which emphasizes its obscurity, right? So what you can realize here is that by using these rhetoric questions, as the audience, we get the feeling that, okay, Nile River is something like this. Even we are in two different extremes, whether Nile River is really fruitful, whether we need Nile River for the protection of people, nurse of the SWAT nations. On the other hand, chief of the pyramid and crocodile, son of the all moon mountains. What is the correct one, right? That is the question is all about, right? So we can understand that, right? Fruitful means puta beneficial. අපි කියන්නේ ප්‍රතිලාභදායි නේ. සිංහලෙන් කියනවා ප්‍රතිලාභදායි. fruitful කියන්නේ පළතුරු තියනවා කියන එක නෙමෙයි. fruitful කියලා කියන්නේ මේ ප්‍රතිලාභදායි. ඇත්තටම මේ නයිල් ගඟ මිනිස්සුන්ට ප්‍රතිලාභදායිද? මිනිස්සු එකෙන් ජීවත් වෙනවද? මිනිස්සු කීයක් හරි හොයා ගන්නවද? මිනිස්සු මාළු අල්ලනවද? මිනිස්සු තමන්ගේ ගෙවල් දොරවල් වලට ඕන කරන වතුර ටික මේකෙන් ගන්නවද? ඒ නිසා මිනිස්සු මේකට ගොඩක් රෙස්පෙක්ට් කරනවද? එහෙම නැත්නම් එහෙම ලොකු දෙයක් නෑ. මිනිස්සු බොරුවට බය වෙලා මේ අතීතේ කතා අහලා මිස්ටරිකල් මිතිකල් ෆීචර්ස් නිසා නයිල් ගඟට ගිහිල්ලා වදිනවද? ඔන්න ඔය දෙක අතර තමයි මෙයා පොඩි ප්‍රශ්නයක ගැටිලා ඉන්නේ. So John Keats is thinking that what is the reality? So that is why he is asking the question. He is putting that question to the audience, right? That is why it is known as a rhetoric question. Now you may ask that why it is known as a rhetoric question, because he can't understand. That is why he is asking that question from the audience, right? He is asking from the audience, right? So you can give the answer, right? You can give the answer for this. That is what he says, right? Okay. Yeah, prosperity, right? Here obscurity means not known, right? Still not known, mysterical. Obscurity means mysterical, still not known, right? Still not known. Obscurity means still not known, right? Even the writers still not know what actually happened, why people are showing this much of respect towards the Nile River, why they are taking Nile River as something special. There are number of other rivers in the world, but the poet cannot realize the fact that why they are giving so much respect towards the Nile River. ඒකේ ඇත්තටම මිනිස්සුන්ට සේවාවක් වෙන හින්දාද නැත්නම් මේ ඒකේ තියෙන මේ බොරු කතන්දර හින්දා අන්න ඔය ප්‍රශ්නයත් එක්ක යා පොඩ්ඩක් ගැටලුවක ඉන්නවා, right? So as the readers, it will arouse our emotions as well. Now we will think that whether our emotions will be aroused. We will think that whether Nile River is really fruitful or else it is just what you call beguile or else with full of enchantment. That's what we can understand, right? අපේ පුතාට තේරුණාද දන්නේ කවුද නමිත්ත පැහැදිලිද? දිසාරි හරිද දුව? දිසාරි කතා කරන්නෙත් නැහැ. සොහාර මොකෝ තත්ත්වය? අමායා තේරුණාද මෙතනට වෙනකන්? තාමත් අපි ඉන්නේ අර mythical mystical features වල. හරි අපි තාම අර Volta Line එකට ආවේ නැහැ. We still did not discuss about the Volta Line. Now soon after the Volta Line තමයි අමායා මනුස්සයන්ට මේක ඇත්ත. In the Volta Line everything will be shifted. හැමදේම වෙනස් වෙනවනේ ඒකෙදි. ඊට පස්සේ යා කතා කරනවා මේකේ තියෙන practical ස්වරූපේ. නයිල් ගඟ කියලා කියන්නේ එහෙම මේ අමුතු ගඟක් නෙමෙයි. ඒකත් නිකන් සාමාන්‍ය ගඟක් තමයි. ඒකේ අමුතු දෙයක් නැහැ කියලා අපේ බුද්ධියට කතා කරනවා යා. අපේ emotions ඔක්කොම පැත්තක දාලා he is appealing to our intelligence, right? That is what we can see. These are the emotions, right? Okay. Right. තාම අපි එතනට ආවේ නෑ. We still did not come to that part. තාම අපි එතනට ආවේ නෑ. තාම අපි මේ කියන්නේ නයිල් ගඟ කොච්චර මිනිස්සුන්ට මේ මිනිස්සුන්ගේ ආදරය සහ මිනිස්සුන්ගේ ගාව තියෙන මේ obscurity මිනිස්සු බයයි නයිල් ගඟට, right? ඒක හරි sacred විදියට පිළිගන්නවා. දෙයා අපි එහෙම කියනවනේ පුතා. දැන් අපි කැලණි ගඟ එහෙම පිළිගන්නේ, right? දැන් ඒක නිකන් ගඟක් නේ පුතා. It is just a river, but we have certain sacredness, right? Because of the Kalaniya river. And Lord Buddha actually attended to for the second time when he came to Sri Lanka. Likewise, we have some kind of special quality. That same quality is not given to Mahaveli river. That same quality is not given to Kaluganga. Say ekama dila naha but they are also rivers. ඒවත් ඉතින් ගංගාවල් තමයි ඉතින් එකම දේනේ වෙන්නේ වතුරනේ තියෙන්නේ. right? අමුතු දෙයක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ නේ. So that's the difference. ඒක තේරුම් ගන්න මෙතන. ඒක තමයි පැහැදිලි කරන්නේ. කවියා විසින් විස්තර කරන්න යන්නේ මේකයි. ඇයි මේ ගඟට විතරක් මේ අමුතු එකක් දීලා තියෙන්නේ? Why it is so special? දැන් එයා ප්‍රශ්න කරනවා, is that because really that the Nile river is fruitful? මිනිසුන්ට මාර වැදගත් beneficialද? එහෙම නැත්නම් මිනිස්සු මේ බොරුවට බය වෙලා? Just a beguile, right? Because of the enchanting and all the other fables and stories related to the Nile river, the background story. ඒ නිසාද කියලා එයා. Right? I hope that you guys have completed. We will move on to the next part. Right. Because it's silent service. Yeah, you can say like that. Because of its silent service. Now, එක හොඳ උත්තරයක් නමිත් and in the sestate part, the poet says that same silent service is done by each and every river. Right? It is not special to Nile river. දැන් අපි service එක ගැන කතා කරානේ නමිත්. එතකොට එයා කියනවා ඔය කරන සේවාව අනිත් හැම ගඟක්ම කරනවා. ඕක මේ නයිල් ගඟට විතරක් අමුතු දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. What is the ultimate service done by a river to the world? The river provides water in order to survive for the people and all the other living beings. And because of that water, what do you call, there will be a very good fresh vegetation. That is the only support given by any river, whether it is long or short or whatever. At the end of the day, what will happen to the river? The river will go to the sea. That's what happens to each and every river in this world. That is the reality. ලෝකේ තියෙන ඕනම ගඟක් කරන්නේ මොකද්ද? මිනිසුන්ගේ අවශ්‍යතාවලට ජලය දෙනවා. ශාක වගා කරන්න අවශ්‍ය කරන ජලය සපයනවා. ඔච්චර තමයි. වෙන මොකද්ද කියන්නේ ගඟෙන් අපිට ගන්න පුළුවන් දේ? වෙන මොකුත් ගන්න බෑ. වැලි ගොඩ දාන්න පුළුවන්. ඒව තමයි. ඒක අන්තිමට කියනවා, right? Finally, in the last part, he explains that that is the only support. මෙච්චර තමයි මීට වඩා දෙයක් හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ. So Nile river is not special. Right? අන්තිම කොටසදී ආ ඒක කියනවා. Right? He explains that part. Right? Right. Emotions related to happiness. Now I'm again taking the emotions, right? The word emotions are actually taken here by myself in order to explain the question. Now here you can highlight that part. Emotions related to happiness and mystery will be changed with the introduction of the sestate, right? Now the poet is dealing with practical or common elements related to any river. By referring to this, the reader's emotions will convert from delight to intelligence. Will convert from delight to intelligence, right? සතුටෙන් දැන් මේක බුද්ධිය කියන එකට යනවා. අපි සිංහලෙන් කියනවා මේකට ආනන්දයෙන් ප්‍රඥාවට යනවා කියන. ආනන්දයෙන් ප්‍රඥාවට. From delight to intelligence. Now we understand the reality. The audience may also realize the Nile river is overrated by the poet, and then the poet himself explains about the reality of the river. This changes the perspective of the poet as well as the readers to quote from the text. This is the Volta line, as I have said. Oh, may dark fancies they surely do. Right. The ninth line is the volta of the sonnet, which separates the octave 8 lines with the regular rhyming of scheme of the sestet. Now we are not going to discuss about the mythical historical features of the Nile River. From here onwards, we are talking to the intelligence. We are appealing to the intelligence of the readers. I hope you can understand, right? Keats comes to a conclusion that inaccurate means dark, imaginations means fancies. All the difficult words I have explained here, you can write down, they are inside the brackets. Inaccurate, dark imaginations have made a mistake, right? So these dark imaginations made some kind of a mistake by personifying the fancies, which is later introduced with with O and the exclamation mark. The poet introduces an interjection to add emphasis to his sudden realization. Right, sudden realization. මෙච්චර වෙලා මේකේ තියෙන අභියෝගය ගැන, මේකේ තියෙන ලස්සන ගැන, සුන්දරත්වය ගැන කිය ඉඳලා එක පාට නිින්දෙන් යහැරෙනවා. Right? So suddenly he come to the realization. He understood that Nile River is not special. So from here onwards, what we are going to discuss is that the delight, the emotions of delight changes into intelligence. දැන් අපි බුද්ධියෙන් මේක ගැන හිතන්න ගන්නවා. Right? That is what we are going to do. Our emotions are going to change now. Right, hurry up and complete the writing. Right. Shall we move on from there? Did you write? Now we have discussed a lot. So we have written a lot about the question. Shall we move on from there? I hope that you guys have finished. Is there anyone who's still writing? Right. So we will move on from there. I hope that you guys have completed. Right. So in the Volta line, as I have explained to you now, the shift is actually occurring here. Right. Shift is actually occurring here. Now the poet is dealing with the reality. Right. The reality of the Nile River is actually discussed from here onwards. Right. So that is how it has appealed to the audience. It is ignorance that makes a barren waste of all beyond itself. The poet remarks, arousing the curiosity of the reader, that there is an infertile waste, regardless the earlier emphasized mythical value. An infertile waste. So previously he forgot, right? He forgot, or else he has taken certain things in a different manner into consideration. As a result of that, he thought that Nile River is special river due to all these mythical and mystical features. But now he says that that is because of his ignorance, right? An infertile waste, regardless the earlier emphasized mythical value of all beyond itself, which is caused due to the lack of knowledge. Lack of knowledge means ignorance. Now the poet is addressing to the intelligence of the readers, right? Intelligence of the readers. The beauty, legendary, sacredness related to the Nile River has been vanished. Now everything is gone. Everything cannot be seen. The poet is evoking the practicality of any river, right? Practicality of any river is actually revoked, and same practicality can be seen even in the Nile River as well. Thus thou bid you green rushes like our rivers, right? Thus is the archaic form of the verb to do. Keats states that the river Nile covers the thick vegetation near the river. River means rushes. With the water drops, Bidu refers to the water drops. They are known as archaic language, the language from the Bible, Old English. As the river is performing the action of the Bidu, it can be taken as a personification, green color, which repeats, emphasize the prosperity of the river. Keats uses a smile, like our rivers, to compare the river Nile to common rivers in Europe, which diverts the mythical value. Exactly. So finally, John Keats tries to explain the fact that you are just like any other river, right? You can be identified as just a normal natural river, just like the other rivers, right? There is no specialty in you, right? So the only service actually done by you, as I have suggested, you are providing water for the prosperity of this vegetation. At the end of the day, you go to the sea. That's it. That's what happens, right? There is no mythical quality. There is no mystical quality. All these things I have explained because of my lack of knowledge, right? Lack of knowledge. Now, as you can see here on the screen, you can highlight that the beauty, legendary, sacredness related to the Nile River has been vanished. There is nothing like that, right? There is nothing like that. That is what we can understand, right? So you can write down, hurry up. Right. So I hope that you guys have completed. So yeah, in the last part of the question, so we discussed about the first question from 2021 ordinary level English literature paper. So we are going to continue. So if you are going to write answers, please make sure to write answers and send me the answers. Then we can check the answers as well. Right. So I hope that you guys have finished. I am moving to the next part. And dost taste the pleasant sunrise green, else haste thou too. The simile extends and the poet says similar to the common rivers in Europe. Now he is giving a lot of similarities that can be seen in the other rivers. Same thing can be seen in Nile River as well. So as a result of that, there is no special quality, right? Similar to the common rivers in Europe, the river Nile too enjoys the sunrise, just like the other rivers in Europe. The river performing the action of tasting is a personification. That comparison extends, and Keats mentions that like common rivers in Europe, Nile has islands in it too, right? So the Keats says that, okay, in other rivers also we can see islands. In the Nile River also, we can see these islands. These are the common features of any river, right? So by trying to tell that, Keats is trying to generalize the idea. Keats is trying his best to generalize the idea, and to the sea as happily dost haste. Finally, you are going towards the sea. By using the form of sonnet, the poet has created happiness, mystery, and the beauty in our mind in the octave part of the poem. The sestate part is appealing to our emotions in a different manner. There we find out the intelligence and the logical thought of the readers are influenced by the poet by referring to the practical elements of the Nile River. This is how Nile River has actually affected or else appealed to our emotions. I hope you guys can understand. Then we will go to the next question. Hurry up and write down. Right. Okay, so if you have finished, please pass me a message. Then we will go to the next question. Hurry up. Right. So we will move on. I hope that you guys have finished. So now we are going to our second question. We completed the first question. So we have only 10 minutes, but we will move on to the question. This is from the second question. Still, we are discussing the poetry part. We are taking all the poems and we will finish that. And then we will move on to the short stories and the novel, right? We are discussing 2021 paper. I have already sent you the paper. Analyze the terrorist he is watching in terms of its portrayal of terrorism and violence in society. Analyze the terrorist he is watching in terms of its portrayal of terrorism and violence in society. So we have done this poem. I think we have discussed a question very similar to this question, but however, we will move on. Very special poem written by a very special writer, Wisława Szymborska, who received international recognition with the Nobel Prize. The most prestigious prize can any poet or any short story writer or author can receive in his lifetime. The most prestigious one, that is the Nobel Prize, right? Wisława Szymborska received international recognition when she won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1996. In awarding the prize, the Academy praised her poetry that with ironic precision allows the historical and biological context to come to light in fragments of human reality. The Terrorist He is Watching by Wisława Szymborska is a poem that tells about the narrator waiting anxiously for a planted bomb to explode in a bar, watching and describing people as they enter and leave the bar, right? That is the plot of, or else the story of the poem, the incident, right? Watching and describing people as they enter and leave the bar. When a person leaves, the narrator acts as though the person is going to miss a real treat. When a person enters the bar, the tone of the narrator seems to increase, as though all those to experience the bomb are quite lucky indeed. So here we have two perspectives. People who are coming towards the bar, they are unlucky because they are going to die. And some people are getting out of the bar and they are lucky. So here we have that the concept of destination, the theme of destination is also actually can be seen in the poem. The entire poem is based on the themes of violence and terrorism. Now, please pay your attention towards the two words that I have told you. Your entire question that you are going to describe here by using these two words, right? So the terrorism and we have the violence, right? So we must discuss about, there are other themes, but we are going to discuss about terrorism and violence. There are other questions that we can discuss, but we are not going to pay attention to those questions. Our main intention is to write about terrorism and violence. We are not going to write about other themes which are related to this, the power of destination and the human fate, right? We are not going to write about that. We are going to write about terrorism and violence, right? Because that is what they have asked from us, and we are going to write about that. The entire poem is based on the themes of violence and terrorism. So I have taken the two words from the question. The terrorist enjoys the activity done by him. He is inhumanly waiting to see the dead bodies of people, right? So he is anxiously waiting to see the dead bodies of people. We can see this. He will be satisfied after observing the corpses of people. He will only get some kind of satisfaction by looking at the dead bodies of people. Different types of people who enter to the bar didn't have any idea that what kind of destiny that they are about to face. This is dealing with the violence of the story. The clock is ticking, the terrorist is waiting until the bomb explodes, right? So here we discussed about the violence. At the same time, we discussed about the terrorism as well, right? So both facts are actually described here, right? So you can hurry up and write down. And if you have finished, you can leave the meeting. So your next class will be on Saturday. We are going to discuss about vendor of sweets, and make sure to have your course box with you. We are going to discuss from chapter number 5. Up to now, we have discussed chapter number 4. All the difficult words I have given to you, and you have the teacher's explanation already. We have finished the teacher's explanation and we are dealing with the textbook now, right? All the difficult words will be discussed. If something happens, definitely the recording will be provided, or else if there can be electricity problems, sometimes, most of the time when we are conducting classes, those things cannot be avoided. So if something happens like that, definitely the recording will be provided to the relevant students. They can get the recording from me. They can ask for the recording, and recording will be provided after 1 day or 2. Right. If you have finished this, you can leave the meeting. Next day, we will continue from this question. This is only the introductory paragraph. And from next week onwards, we are going to continue this question, and we will continue the entire paper 2021 ordinary level examination paper related to literature. So thank you so much. We will meet next week.